You can tune your clock to this, you know. Tell you, got it. Is that just cool? Some say no, some say yes, but I say it does. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Good to see you. Oh man, 7 seconds early. Well, there you go. I mean, we got a whole 7 seconds. Let's see here. How can we do? Oh, we can create a universe, I think, in about 7 seconds, couldn't we? Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Hello, all the moderators. David Barry, 75, and Joyce, and I think I even saw Brian in here, and Barry, and Skyheart, and Claudette. Good to see you. Anne, good to see you as well. Susie Q, hello. And there he is. I thought so. Cosmic Convergence. How you doing, Brian? Haven't seen you in a while. Bianca, good to see you, my dear. And Richard, and the Think Agape Love Always. Peace. Lust in Space. Hello. And Robin, good to see you. So good to see everyone. I hope that this day finds you well. I'll invoke favor upon you and speak the fact that nothing missing, nothing broken be in your life. Imagine that. Everything in your life, every mistake, suddenly fixed. Those things that you have missed, we all have. I believe it's true. And I want to say something as well. Before I came on here, I was thinking, and the thought came to me, someone needs to hear this, so to whoever it may be. Listen, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what the circumstances, no matter how difficult the challenge seemed to be, whether they be external or internal, the thing about it is, Earth is a challenging place. It's both beauty and it's ugly. It's just the way it is. Try to reason, doesn't do much good. It just is. We're here. We're in this place. And I just want to say this, no matter where you are in life, the fact that you are in a place in this life speaks volumes for yourself. And quit kicking yourself in the butt. That's what Earth is here for, to make mistakes. And, sometimes they cost more, but we learn. And just enjoy it. It's all right. The fact that you're here, means that at least you got the birthright, right? You came in. We all leave the same way, maybe different avenues, but the same way. So give yourself a pat in the back. You're all right. You're a good soul. And this isn't the end. It goes on. So there you go. Happy birthday. And anyone celebrating an anniversary, got one coming up myself. So just want to speak that. And if it's your birthday, hey, congratulations on that. One more year on this place. And it's getting crazy. Speaking of crazy, tonight on the Steiger Perspective, we're going to talk about how crazy it's getting. The future is not what we had planned, is the title of that. And boy, yeah. Okay. Got a special announcement to make. We're working out the details now. I believe Ken is in England, so we're getting the times. But Ken Humphreys is going to be coming in. He's written a number of books. Jesus Never Existed. You can go to his website as well. In fact, I think I can actually pull it up here for you to see. There you go. This is a website, by the way, chock full of great information. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because we're going to spend a good hour with Ken when he comes on. But he also has a YouTube channel, Jesus Never Existed. Check it out. Just loaded with good information, good intel here. If you've got confusion, which we all do, it's just natural. It's normal. Check this out. Again, JesusNeverExisted.com. And Yeah, have fun with that. It's pretty cool. Um, Tomorrow, I'm really looking forward when Ken gets on here. This is going to be an hour that, yeah. All right. Tomorrow I have Haley coming on. We've seen her in the chat room. We're going to be talking about the changes taking place along the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico itself. Something's going on down there, folks. There is, and you know, science is always best done through the eyes of the observer. And so if you're at a location and you're observing changes to the land, the environment, well, you are the best scientist in that area because you're actually seeing what's going on. So we're going to be talking about that. All right. We're going to get into some really good stuff here today. We really are. I just got this in, started reading it last night. Wow. Just wow. I mean, the title of this is The Unseen Kingdoms, Which Rules You? Yeah. I hate to think that, you know, we're being ruled, but we are. One form of another. Anyway, this book here, this is, as you can see, the Denisovans, the origins. Folks, how do I just say it? You know, we're discovering new things. We're digging deeper. We're finding a history that 50 years ago, people didn't know anything about. 2,000 years ago, when they were writing the books that are so much mind coitus today, they didn't know this. And so history is going to have to be rewritten because they made up history. When you think about modern man knows very little knowledge about his beginnings. We don't. Wish we did. And as a result, all the holy books, whatever they are, if they're considered to be holy books, all religions, all of them are going to have to be, well, what we've discovered is this. There was a cataclysm that hit the earth 12,800 years ago, 12,800 BC. Wiped us out. It wasn't us. Sapiens were here. Well, maybe sapiens. It depends on how you want to look at this. But the earth was basically, you could say, it was hit by a comet. It's what we know. And fire engulfed the earth. You know, wiped out all the species. And the problem is modern day theologians are having a very difficult time reconciling what their theology is to now what the geology is showing. And we've got this gap. And depending on what your point of view, that gap is anywhere from 2 to possibly 5,000 years. And as a result of that, we have basically built everything on what man's imagination is. Remember, no God has walked the earth, at least none that's come forward. Now, people don't like to hear that, but folks, at some point in time, you're going to have to grow up. We've been studying the spirit realm, and we've learned a lot of things about the spirit realm. A lot that, quite frankly, bust through the myths, the constructs of what so many of us were taught, which is not true. And no matter what you believe, this is the one universal truth. If there's one thing that we could say is truth, is that we're all going to die. We're all going back home. We're only temporary residents over here. No one's got a claim of longevity. In fact, if your eyes were truly open, you would be preparing for that journey extensively, not relying on a theology. But the one thing we do know is that there is another side. There's a spiritual realm. If there isn't, then I don't know why you're here, why you'd want to live. If this is all it is, I mean, we've been through that. We're going to get into that study more. That's basically a belief in materialism. And that is a trap. It gets us trapped. So there's unseen kingdoms. Now, I knew this when I was a practicing Christian. I went to Bible college, I studied. I've known some of the biggest out there, but that doesn't matter. I studied diligently, and I thought I had it figured out. I thought my ticket was punched, and baby, yeah, I could screw up, but you know what? I had the golden ticket. My name was written in the book, and yeah, well, it sucks when that happens. When that whole thing blows up, you go, okay, well, now what do I do? Well, you have to begin to dig deep. Trina and I talked about it yesterday. People that have that experience, they know what we're talking about. I mean, my wife was almost going, I said, what's going on with you? Down in a fetal position. They lied to me. But what I really had to do was accept responsibility for myself. I lied to myself. I had the doubts. I never, investigated the doubts. Should have. But in the scheme of things, it was meant that I wouldn't. That's the thing about how we look at things. So I want to pull this up. I want to show, because we really got into some things yesterday that I wanted to follow up on. This is a brief little showing of some thoughts that we have been discovering. And it's quite interesting when you go through it. So a kingdom. What does a kingdom mean? Well, it's a land, it's a realm, a domain in which something is dominated. Think about that. So by that definition, we know here on earth, there are many different kingdoms, and the subjects to those kingdoms can either be living in a living hell. Well, we're all living in hell, but some more to degrees than others. The United States is now the least most favorable place to live in the industrialized nation. Did you know that? We're turning this place into a living hell. All right, kingdom is a country with a king as a head of state. It can be a realm that is the domain ruled by a king or queen. So the king is the head of state, or it can be ruled by a monarchy. Kingdom, a monarchy with a king or queen as the head of state. Kingdom, the highest taxonomic group into which organisms are grouped. Did you know that? Yeah, each one of the 5 categories of biology is ruled as separate kingdoms. And then you have a basic group of natural objects. For instance, the solar system could be considered a kingdom. Bet you never thought about that. In fact, boy, it's really hitting me on that. Imagine we are in the dominion, the kingdom of someone that most likely is ruling this solar system that we are in. A lot of evidence is pointing towards that. All right. So when we get into that point, when we have to go, all right, so we're under dominion, we're being dominated, and typically people that are dominated, they're typically going to be worshiping that which is their dominator. To worship is the reverent honor and homage paid to a god or a sacred personage or an object regarded as sacred, formal, or ceremonially rendering of such honor and homage, adoring, reverence, or regard, devoted, the object of adoring reverence. Devotion is defined as profound dedication, consecration, earnest attachment to a cause, person, etc., an assignment, or an appropriation to any purpose or cause. So we can say that we're here, all of us are on a mission, but we could also say it's also our devotion. Puts a new spin on it, doesn't it? Homage simply means respect or reverence paid or rendered, the formal public acknowledgement by which a feudal tenant, technically that's what all of us are, or vassals, declared himself to be a man or vassal to his lord, owing him the fidelity and service. The relation thus established as a vassal to his lord, spending the most time with. So yes, if you are dedicated to a religious belief or any belief that you have subjected yourself to, you are basically in the feudal mindset. I'm just defining it for you folks. Don't hate me. You should appreciate it. Something done or given in acknowledgement or consideration of worth to another. Okay. Attention. The act of faculty of attending, especially by directing the mind to an object. We all do this. All of us. A concentration of the mind on a single object or thought, especially preferentially selected from a complex, with a view to limiting or clarifying receptivity by narrowing the range of stimuli. Meditation. Meditation is a form of attention. A state of consciousness characterized by such concentration. That's what meditation is. It is a state of consciousness. And when we talk about a state of consciousness, there are many different states. All of those in the chat room right now, each one of you are in a different state of consciousness. Those who are watching this on the replay, you have right now, you're in a particular state of consciousness. And it doesn't mean being awake. A capacity to maintain selective or sustained concentration, to be devoted to a subject or object. This is all spiritual as well. I contend that this is man's altar of worship. It's taken us over. We're not in control. Our thoughts are a reflection of our devotion. Think about that. What occupies your thoughts the most? What central subject, theme? That's where your devotion is going to be at. Now, this is how it started. Thought. There is nothing to compare to thought. The great philosophers, the great men and women who have walked the earth, who have, I think, were of a different species, they brought to us the thought. The Christian Bible says in the book of John, in the beginning was the Word. You could say in the beginning was the thought. Without thought, there's nothing that we could compare to anything. This is what the ether is. This is where you and I exist, even now. The ether is everywhere. We're just in a denser vibration here, denser frequency, and that density manifests itself as flesh, objects, material objects. But we also have the ability to visit the ether. In fact, when you're in meditation, you're there. So thought leads to matter. Matter leads to reality. Now, the question is, do you have reality before matter? I don't know how you could have a reality without matter, but maybe you can. And matter is defined for us right now as material substance. And reality leads to the universes. I believe man will find as we continue to evolve, if we evolve. It's questionable, but spiritually we will, either here or in another planet, that there are many universes. Going to be doing one on spiritual wormholes. So the question really becomes then, since we know there was a cataclysmic event, we've dated it pretty much. It was also the Dryas, the last ice age. So the question, all this is post comet impact. So we know, for instance, the denizens, they were remarkable people. We're finding things. And the thing about how they're classifying the denizens is this: as a subspecies of Homo, of man. So we have the mythologies, the poetry of the Sumerians, of the Anunnaki, Enlil, But understand that's all post-comet. There's no records of any of these things before then. Leads me to believe that maybe this is more make-believe than what so many others believe. Maybe the Elohim don't exist. No God came and saved our ass, that's for sure. Just saying. So you look at how we go about this, the worship of stones and heels. Why is it that it was written in stone? You heard the expression, well, it's written in stone. And the interesting thing about it is that you look at whether it be Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they all have this stone thing. In Mecca, we know it's the black cube and the meteorite or the rock. You can get close enough to it, you can touch it, they say. But all over the world, on every continent, we find the erection of stones. Even in modern times, people still worship stones. Many mountains are still worshiped today as sacred. Every religion has apparently a mountain, a hill. We worship plants and trees. You think we don't? All of us have been indoctrinated into this thing called the tree of life, the tetrahedrogram. Folks, it didn't exist before the comet. We got no records of it. So how can we say that this is the tree of life, that this represents the 10 points of God? Man wrote that. If man didn't write it through his imagination, then it was channeled. And if it was channeled, then that opens up a whole Pandora's box for every religion. Many cultures still worship trees. I happen to believe that trees have spirits. I think they're another species that we're just not aware. But every faith has the tree involved, either crucified or bringing life. In the Western world, everyone gets into the Christmas tree. If they knew what they were really doing, they might find it contradictory to what they have. But nevertheless, we know of trees that are thousands and thousands of years old, longer lived than any human. We worship animals, going back to the time of the Baals, the Molochs. Today, many cultures worship animals as divine, having the spirit of the divine. This was practiced way before the written word. Animals have always been worshiped. And maybe there might be something to this. For man's limited perspective on the animal kingdom is so retarded in its view. We worship the elements: earth, water, fire, air. spirit. We know these. We study philosophy, hermetics. We worship the heavenly bodies, the Vatican. People think they're worshiping the S-O-N, but actually they're worshiping the S-U-N. We know this, cultures dating back of ancient records of drawings in caves, worshiping the moon. The moon is significant in all of the folklores. And that's all we can say that they are. The Samaritan myths, the Egyptian myths, Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Hittites, Canaanites. How far do you want to go? We have forgotten the history of how the planets. This is a kingdom. There's a dominion that is involved here. In this drawing is depicted of the Christ as representing the planets. Strange indeed. Mysteries throughout the whole form of it. And man worships man. Here's a man receiving life. Man becomes gods. Now, study this picture here, folks. This is the United States Capitol, the Rotunda. Now, it has been the fiery debate of many Christians to ignore this. They have tried to reinterpret it. They have tried in many different ways to ignore it. But you cannot help but that Diana is sitting on top of the Capitol, and right under her feet is this as George Washington as God. And you have the full mythos of Olympus here. Study it, folks. And then you've got this. Yeah, this is in the Capitol. This is George Washington as Zeus. And what do you have to say about this? Makes you think, doesn't it? We're under an illusion that we live under a form of government that is anything but what we think. Ask yourself why. We have done the same thing our ancestors have done. From the time of whether this character ever lived, Solomon, who knows? But yet, this is Olympus. Ramses, going back to the first dynasty. Now, the adjuncts of worship and wisdom are this. There's actually 7 of them, believe it or not. The first is the spirit of intuition. The spirit of intuition is quick perception, the primitive physical and inherent reflex instincts, the directional and other self-preservation endowments of all mind creation. Then you have the spirit of understanding, the impulse of coordination, the spontaneous and apparently automatic association of ideas, the spirit of courage, the fidelity endowment, the basis of character, acquirement, and intellectual root of moral stimuli and spiritual bravery. 4, you have the spirit of knowledge, the curiosity, mother of adventure and discovery, the scientific spirit, the guide and faithful associate of the spirits of courage and counsel. You have the spirit of counsel, the social urge, the endowment of species cooperation, the ability of will, creatures to harmonize with their fellows, the origin of the gregarious instinct. Then we have the spirit of worship, the religious impulse, the first differential urge separating mind creatures into 2 basic classes of mortal existence. Worship is the badge of spiritual ascension candidacy. And last, you have the spirit of wisdom, the inherent tendency of all moral creatures towards orderly and progressive evolutionary advancement, the highest adjunct, the spirit coordinator, the articulator of all the others. Well, that's what the goal is it not? Give me a second here. Now, from the temples to the churches, the story continues. We have a different history, folks. I worked with the Smithsonian. They were a client of mine for a number of years when I was in the video post-production industry. This book here opens up with the fact that the earliest archaeological findings now around Jericho, the walls of Jericho, those walls, ladies and gentlemen, were 15 feet thick and nearly 20 feet tall. They were built to keep something out, something big, something really big. These big things were apparently part of the casualty. There's a very different earth. Our minds won't allow us to accept this. But through the mythos of all religions are the story of the giants. They do exist. Some say they exist yet today. We've had so many clues left behind that man did not understand, only feared. We never realized that it was electricity that was truly the gods themselves. How they travel, how they feed, how they exist. And then we get into this whole thing with the spoken word. This is what frames our realities. Our history is spoken, and then it becomes our beliefs. Man didn't always have the written word after the cataclysm. It set us back, who knows? Whether it was the Neolithic, Paleolithic period, the Bronze Age. Isn't it odd that they say the Bronze Age came before the Iron Age, yet it takes more technology to produce bronze than it does iron? Why is that? This is where the stories come from. This is where our beliefs today come from. No one has ever seen an original of anything. Now, this is how fantasy becomes tradition. Folk tales. Realistic tales could have really happened. Exaggeration is limited. Only a few exist. Fairy tales are the most magical in enchantment. Then you get tall tales, exaggerations of major elements, many based on supposedly real individuals and marvelous deeds. Legendary characters whose stories were considered factual in ancient times, as they are today. But people, it's our tendency that once we anchor in, once we set our tendrils into a belief, many will die defending that belief. Then man went to the written word. At first we had the cuneiform. After the cuneiform, we began to understand different symbologies, which led into sigil, which we call alphabets. All alphabets, if you look at all letters, are sigils. Every alphabet of the world. It's symbology. Even Hebrew. Then we got the printing press. Now the written word became the printed word. The evolution of the crystallization of mythos, fables, fairy tales became factual when it became printed. Because the ignorance of most people is that they would pick up a book, and if the book was written and the book was printed, it had to be factual. And thus is how constructs are built. But something else happened. There apparently is what we can only document, and many are starting to write on this, because now we have the vernacular to describe the event. There seems to have been an upgrade, an update to our operating systems, man's. Now, some say, this is what's happening today. They're trying to jack literally the mental process and inject their own OS, operating system. What we do know is our brains have changed. The world has been transformed. And when you begin to look at what happened in 1844 was a major event. I contend if these spiritual beings, in fact, do exist, they exist in an electrical universe. Imagine this when we begin to communicate by electrical lines, the telegraph. Goes deeper than this. Then man invented the radio. This was a game changer. Now man became equal to the gods. And this is how we became equal to the gods, because we knew that as we sent these frequencies out into outer space, man became immortal, knowing that millions of years can pass and those waves are still out there. We began to change things. Some people say that there was a spiritual change as well. The indigenous people believed that the spoken word that they were hearing was the spirit word. How can you record my essence? So the spoken word became the recorded word. And once the recorded word began, we brought in a new frequency. You see, man, for the longest time, had very little to actually entertain himself with. But now this changed. I could also now hear something that I could never hear before unless I was physically at a location where those instruments were available, music. I could hear a speech and not be there. I could allow my imagination to begin to run with me and create universes and realities just by what I was hearing. And man took to it like fish to water. But about the same time when this was happening, we started capturing our souls. Fantasy became reality, and the change went unnoticed. In the 1930s, man fundamentally shifted again. With radio, the changes were so rapid. And what we began to find out was that it had a hypnotic effect on the masses. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the beginning. Gathering around the box that spoke. Oh, yes. Each previous generation from that, more of the conditioning. The spoken word, now our voices are immortal. They now mix with the gods. Then I almost have to think maybe the gods were the ones that gave us the idea for the telephone. Look what it is morphed in today. We can't resist it. We're drawn to it. Maybe it's because it's something in our spiritual nature, but nevertheless, the acoustic vibrations, the harmonics used, have a palatable effect on us. Frequency altering the brain. And it advanced, and it advanced. along with this box. This box is what I would call the true spirit box. There's imitations today, but ladies and gentlemen, this is the first spirit box. And once we tuned into spirit conjuring by dedicating our attention to the spirit box, it began to mesmerize our minds. Our minds became pliable to it because, you see, our minds no longer had to think. The thought was literally beamed into us. And once we got attached, once we got addicted to it, there was no turning back. Generation after generation after generation. It's here. It's altered our lives because it's become our altar. But you see, something else happened. Because of these things, we brought back the gods. But these gods only became the fact that they were in the shows that we were doing. We erected idols. No different than our ancestors. We call it music. Now, back in the day, music was primarily for the elite. They had their parties, their orgies, their celebrations, and the commoners would have to build their own instruments. But when you could have basically a full orchestra. But we did something more. We have now taken this to even a higher frequency. We are now using microwaves, radio frequencies that alter the brain itself. We know these by the patents. They're out there. You can study in it exactly how mass hypnosis takes place. We know how it affects the brain from the beta all the way to the delta. Now, music, as they say, is an outburst of the soul. But what rock and roll did, unlike anything prior to it, was that it brought a frequency in that combined them all. It changed a generation, never to be the same again. And it grew and grew and grew. But yet something else happened again. We became slaves to the black mirrors. This that started out through the simple written word has now become the electronic word. And it's mesmerized our planet ever since then. We no longer have any generations that are free. They are now all devotees, devoted worshipers. They will kill you. They will fight you if you take their device away. And no generation is immune. And it grows, and it grows, and it grows. And now we have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi. Everywhere, saturating us. All the time, all the places. There is no excuse, no escape. This is what we've become. We've encircled our planet. It is truly a web now, a grid that was one time merely metaphorically. Now it's literal. And then, of course, we discovered the atom. The atom let in. I contend that when we exploded these bombs, they ripped the fabric of time itself, opened gashes in the space-time continuum. We know this by the math that we have looked at and how we begin to accelerate forward. Now we're getting into digital. And now the chip is everywhere. The chip is the sigil. The sigil was the design for the chip. And now they're going to be implanting them into us. Some say already. The portal is open. So, little different, I know, but the point is this, folks. What's happened to us is that it can't be denied. And that's why the study of what we're doing here plays a role. And that presentation goes on, by the way. But I felt at this point to simply demonstrate all the work that I have produced here, folks, is all leading to this. I mean, if the spirit realm isn't real, then why are we even here? I mean, and I don't accept the way that it has been painted to me, portrayed. But I have no doubt that that reality most likely exists over there. I contend that we may are already being assigned to different kingdoms. The spirit realm is vast. It has no limit. And I don't believe it's just floating out there. I believe that there is literally planets for every one of these different realities. We certainly have made a great deal of realities here on our planet Earth, haven't we? Well, thank you, Jim. And that's why I do these presentations. I respect you. I respect your intelligence. I respect the integrity of who and what you are as a sentient being. And when I can put them in a presentation where my thoughts are explicitly expressed as to where they're coming from, it leads us then into that next part of the journey. And we'll pick up on it. We're going to continue to pick up on it. It was just important for me to go back and show you. Now, that presentation, by the way, is almost 2 years old. And isn't it odd that how you look at kingdoms, unseen kingdoms, that we're immersed in them, folks? There's no other way. When they get close. Yeah, that's true, Claudette. Yes, when we do get close to the truth, they seem to just want to knock us out. Like, hey, you guys can't have this stuff. Who do you think you are? Y'all remember the one I did on Keck? How many of you remember that one? Remember Keck, the frog? The whole Trump whole things? I was going through this, and there's a lot of people here that are now here that weren't here before. I want to show you this. I think you might find this of interest. Let me just. So, hello, George. Why am I got you here? So, Paul Frerebin, he said the absolute truth is that there are no absolute truths. There are no facts, only interpretations. How something appears is a matter of perspective, always is. And here I went on to bringing out to the fact that how in our country, we have Olympus here. I think that that's probably the thing that when you go, if you've ever been to Washington, D.C., go to all the monuments. The monuments are not erection of Christian theology, Judaism. It's Rome. It's Greek. It's Olympus. This is Diana. Now they call her here. This is the goddess of justice, I believe, or liberty. Yeah, it's liberty. Now she adorns our capital. Did you know that? I did a whole thing on this. Folks, you see, that's why I know we don't have a democratic government. We're all just a bunch of minions. And the yahoos that get to Washington, D.C., they don't understand. They begin to give servitude to these gods, like it or not. And in this thing, I went in and discussed, how dark matter, energy, how these concepts come in to become really, if we'll get right to it, it's the ether. And we haven't been able, is because when Einstein came in, science deviated from further exploring and trying to figure out the ether. And because Einstein couldn't figure it out, he's like, that's that spooky stuff. And I think it was a big mistake. And I talk about the ARPANET in here. It's very kind of cool. By the way, did you know that the Ethernet was built on a medium, which is the internet today? I mean, you go to a medium, you're going to have your future told, right? I used to be in this business, got into the technical part of all this, but I want to show you something. You see here, there's always this thing I kept on seeing, this force, it's autonomous. It seems to be free from external control, but we gave it up. I have to be real careful because I think in the EU now that this is, they don't like people knowing this, but there's actually, as we know, with the emojicons, that is symbolism. It's tangible. And that what you give your devotion to is what you worship. Now, this is what I was getting to. Mimi magic. The ancient god of death and chaos has been summoned and has now made the transmutation. This was not accidental. This is how it started. I don't know if many of you know the story. If those of you have had, just walk with me on it because it's a good review. Origin, how it started, how this shift took. I contend that on November 9th at exactly 1:11 Eastern Standard Time, there was a shift that occurred. It happened in the Clinton campaign. The whole thing turned around, baby, real quick. In fact, if you go back and you look at the news footage, you will see people who are in shock. One woman was quoted saying, "What happened?" This is what happened. On November 27, 2015, a 4chan user submitted a post about an Egyptian deity to his history board on 4chan, featuring a depiction of the god as a frog-headed man. It spread. It went viral. On March 11, 2016, Redditor River of Karma submitted an image macro associating Pepe the Frog and Donald Trump and the mythic magic with the ancient Egyptian deity Pepe the Frog. And this is how it started. Kek is a deification of the primordial concept of darkness in ancient Egyptian religion. He embodies the time of right before the dawn, making him the bringer of light. Kek is portrayed as a man with a frog's head. In hieroglyphics, Kek is portrayed as the man seemingly sitting at a computer screen. Pairs and numbers are very important in the Ogdog mythology. Repeating numbers were used to create a universe according to the Ogdog. Kek is using 4chan as a vessel to spread his message and to usher in a new era of light called mimetic magic. On June 4th, a Kek worship general thread was created on the trash off-topic board on 4chan. On June 25th, an anonymous 4chan user submitted a post to the R9K, that's the Robot 9000 board, asking if viewers had accepted Lord Kek, ancient Egyptian god of darkness, into their lives. It gets stranger. And here is the actual clip from there. He goes on to say, Mimi magic grows stronger each day, and soon Kek will return to, smite the normies and bring about eternal chaos. I contend, ladies and gentlemen, is not 2019 one of the most chaos years, and it's only going to get worse. So in the mythos, post ending in sevens hold more weight than others. A 7 is considered a lucky and or holy number in many cultures, which increases the value for dubs and trips. These are coding. Similarly, 3 6s, 666, the number of the beast, are considered to represent Satan and evilness. This received one of the highest points ever. On June 19th, my birthday, 2016, when a post reading, Trump will win, managed to get this, folks. This is automatically generated. Randomness gets the 7777777 get. And there it is. This is the original posting. We knew something had taken over. This was prophetic before the guy was ever, was even taken for real. And this is what AI did. Hillary Clinton declared she was at war with the frog at the Democratic convention. Now, I wrote this a couple of years ago. Hillary is now cursed, and she brought the wrath of Keck. Look what's happened to her since then. The God showed its power on June 19th, and this is but the beginning. Remember, energy is never wasted. The God of death and chaos has been resurrected in Keck. All are worshiping him. He has changed reality. How are you enjoying it? It's only going to get stranger. So you have this thing called syntony, matching of frequencies. It gets weird, folks. So Keck is the light bearer. It's the only way that Keck manifests itself. All shall worship him. He takes possession from the cradle, and we're going to see this. There has actually been a 45 out there that you don't want to hear it because it gets contagious. It says, "Sing with me, lads, give the God Emperor your power. He is the syntony of civilizations, confused descendants of rebel cells." You see how cells are spelled? So here's Keck again. Keck is darkness. Thoth. Here's Keck. This is 4,500 BCE between Moloch and Keck. An article, how an ancient god of chaos and darkness became part of the white supremacy, but they just hijacked it. This is the actual prophecy of Keck, and you can look at it to me, but it certainly looks like a computer screen to me with the DNA strand right next to it. Gets into the whole thing. Person sitting in front of computer, the disciple of Keck, receiver and giver of dark mimes, who sits in the darkness, conjuring forth the light that shall appear at the dawn of a new epoch. The second one is the computer with a monitor, instrument of meme magic, precisely configured matrix of physical matter tapping into the computational ether underlying the universe. If a subject of a system is turning complete, so too is the whole. We forget that the fact that we're watching this internet is a frequency. It's affecting us. Lastly, the internet connection, twisted pair of cables, electromagnetic radiation, bidirectional information channeled through which dark memes are transmitted, spread, and multiply. Pep has been resurrected. Weird, isn't it? I don't know how many of you have ever seen that, but if you go and study this, it gets stranger. I mean, the coincidences were off the charts. And look at today. Barry says, yeah, I'm going to bypass the lords of Shambhala. Yeah, seriously. But hey, it's a little different today, kind of a retro thing. But as we get back into this, as we will, you can't help but not see connections everywhere. It's odd. And, believe what you will. Certainly you're entitled to that, but we all are. But hey, make your own PowerPoint if you want. You've got something that can add to it. I'd love to see it. Thank you, Al. You're a good man. I appreciate that. Elling, Ellen, thank you. Marguerite, thank you. Twisted Isby, how you doing? Good to see you. And Ponola, good to see you as well. And Robert, so many of you guys, I didn't get a chance to say all, but hey, the research is there. And, you can say, well, that seems a little weird. I agree with it. It does seem weird. Life on this planet is weird. It is very strange. All right, folks. Thank you. Hey, Nina the Mystic. How are you? Good to see you. Boom! Knowledge. Susie Q, they're great. Thanks you. All right, folks, tune in tonight on the Artist First Network, 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Mountain, 7 Pacific. See you tomorrow with Haley, and it should be an interesting hour. I got some phenomenon that happened over our house, so I'll show you that as well. Be good to yourself. You're beautiful people. Thank you, moderators. You are the best. You've built this community, and I'm just honored to be considered amongst your number. All right, peace to you. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.